good 45 minutes, just until we get ready for lunch. So the objective of this section, describe the hazards, the requirements of working with hazardous materials. We're going to skip through the compressed gas air part unless you guys deal with it. Do you have to deal with compressed gas in any way?
Not me.
Okay.
Only when Bill has to go to the bathroom.
That's in the truck. All right, so we're going to skip that section. Flammable and combustible liquids. You guys deal with that in any way?
No.
Okay.
No.
So we'll scroll through that. So that's good. Permissible exposure limits, PEL. OSHA has an arm that does the scientific version of what is a hazard, and they'll say it specifically by doing some tests and data research, and the PELs tells you, okay, this is a hazard, and this is what you could have a maximum weighted time concentration that you could be exposed to this chemical, and that's your permissible exposure limit. And that's in a 40-hour work week or a 8-hour time frame. So it's saying you could be exposed to this chemical, this hazard, whatever it is, for 8 hours a day, 40-hour work week without there being some sort of adverse effect. If it's any more, then you're above your PEL, you're above your permissible exposure limit. Time-weighted average, TWA limit, so that's the average amount that a substance, a healthy adult can be exposed to over an 8-hour period. And that's average healthy adult. So if someone is a little sickly, that 8 hours may now be 6 or 4, but that's your time-weighted average. The threshold limit value, you're going to see that. Airborne limits of any of your permitted concentrations of a hazardous chemical, and it's represented under certain conditions, and that's your threshold limit value, and that's your day-to-day exposure of whatever that hazard is. So let's say you're working at a place that has high noise, and you go there day in, day out. They're saying you, without any kind of protective equipment, this is your threshold limit value. You can only be here a certain amount of time without it affecting you adversely. In this section, the boiling point and the flash point is something else that you guys won't go over. The flammable liquids. You guys don't do the compressed gas, so we're not going to go over that. Alright, the standard has the hazards, the handling, the storage, and the flammable liquids. They tell you about the handling, the storage, and then the use of these things. So that's all of the standard covers. Remember when I was telling you about each standard has a scope and then the application for the hazardous material standards. That was it. So 2 primary hazards that are associated with flammable and combustible liquids is explosion and fire. So that's a little overview of that section. Explosion and fire, for those, that's not on your test, but that's the flammable ones. What I will go over is the labeling here. Especially if you're driving behind a vehicle that has some sort of label or some sort of tank that looks like this, you should always look for the label. Because let's say you're driving behind them and you could tell from the placard that's on there that, okay, this has X amount of hazards if it's related, or if it's something happens with this truck in front of me that's an accident, I know how to protect myself. So you're looking at the labels. If you could see it, this one is showing an oxidizer because it's got a circle with a flame, and the circle is like an O. So that means it's going to make the fire hotter and it's going to be more intense. So those are the ones you really want to be driving next to a truck like that. Here's the areas. Remember I mentioned earlier in class about if you have gasoline, and if you have oils, paint thinners, you don't want it close together. You know, you have to have it labeled, you know, flammable, very inflammable, danger, and it looks like they have all their thinners on top. So suppose that in here are the oil-based products, so they're kept separate. Storage containers, OSHA actually has a specific requirements for a cabinet. So someone doesn't take a kitchen cabinet and say, all right, this is my storage cabinet. They actually have to have, you know, certain kind of gauges and some sort of space in between, double wall. There's your air space, and has 3-point locks. The door has to be raised at least 2 inches above the cabinet bottom. So that's the cabinet here is telling you need at least 2 inches raised. So OSHA really cares about, you know, how much it is. So if this right here was lower, it may not hit that 2-inch criteria. So someone doing an inspection of this facility, all they do is get a tape measure, go down there. If it's less than 2 inches, you got yourself a citation. Storage rooms, you guys usually, how do you store, do you have the storage rooms? Okay, well, storage rooms now, they have certain criteria you have to meet. You're not storing flammables or combustibles, so that's good. The only thing is gas counts as a flammable and combustible. So you get gas cans, now all of a sudden you're storing your gas cans, you got to be aware of where you're putting them. And the gas cans, especially for the people that have the lawn crews, and you got to make sure that gas-powered stuff is storage and handling of that is special. So that's your rating that you need to have for the storage rooms. You have to have some sort of fire protection. Tells you if there's fire protection for that. So this is a nice little graph of what you need your storage room to look like. Your fire resistance, have to have some sort of 2-hour wall between your flammables and your combustibles. So it has to be spaced out in order, and it tells you your maximum square footage between the two quantities.
So all these pest control companies that use a back closet or back unused conference room for storing chemicals are all against the law.
Yep.
Combustible chemicals, correct?
Well, no, chemicals altogether should have special handling. This particular standard, portion of the standard, is for combustible and flammables. But your chemical storage itself, depending on what it is, meets its certain requirement. So if you're only putting it into a certain room and it has no sort of containment, it has no ventilation, that could be sought as a finable offense. So
mine's actually in a locker. The front of the locker is wired across the front. It's on the outside of the building, but it's underneath the overhang. It's not inside, it's outside the wall, screwed to the concrete wall. The door's closed. You can't get in it. It's all sealed. It's all everything's in there.
Okay. So you have a engineering control where you can't reach it because of its kind of cage, it's got a lock.
Yeah, you can't get in there, definitely.
So that's good that it's
not
isolated.
It's not in the building, so I did
it's
it
covered, so you're not going to get direct sunlight.
Yeah, it's covered.
But your considerations then is what's in it, the container that it's in,
original labels,
and the labeling.
It's all the original containers.
Yeah. So you think of the container, you think about the labeling, and then you think about the conditions. Because let's say everything is fine as far as your labeling, the container, having a locked area, but there's a mess all around there in the cabinet. Now it becomes
we're good there.
the housekeeping thing. They have a
the
housekeeping rule.
still good, thank God.
So that's good. So now with this, they're talking about ventilation and how much you have to have in the storage area in order for it to be a non-hazard to work in. Aisles, let's say it's a big storage room, you need some aisles between this drum and that drum in order to safely walk. So it's all in the standard.
Look at that.
So that's what you,
You gotta go with vault.
Yeah.
You got a vault that's got air exchange in it. Though.
Yeah,
Can't be a
That
airtight
must be
vault.
changed every 6
Yeah.
hours.
so this one is showing that there's a
I'm
hazard.
retiring.
Yeah. Authorized personnel only, so authorized personnel only, what kind of control would you think that is?
That's administrative.
That's an administrative control.
That big bar, that's engineering.
That's
And
engineering.
a lock.
So it's telling you to keep out,
Yeah.
so they engineered something to keep you out, and then they have an administrative control saying, okay, they're telling you, don't go in this room, as well as we're keeping you out with a bar. And they're saying no smoking, and they're labeling it, telling you what's in the room. It's got flammables, and it's a chemical storage room. So that's good.
Let me ask you a question. I noticed that, and I did not know this before, that our cans of Phantom, which is just little 1-pint cans, pressurized, are flammable.
Oh, yeah, all those things, they all
They
got.
should be stored in an area like this, and
Yep, but you also then deal with quantities. So
Okay.
there's a quantity limitation as well. So if you have a lower quantity, let's say you got a bunch of little paint cans, then it depends on how many of those little paint
So
cans
don't
you
buy
have.
cases of it.
Yeah.
I never buy more than 6 cans at a time.
Yeah, so I'm not too sure what your quantity is, but there is a quantity limitation. So
Okay.
yes, it's especially aerosols, you know, that's a
That's what
combustible.
I'm talking about, yeah.
So then, if it's in the right amount of quantity, you fall under that standard.
Look at your shoot them
So here's a drum that has on top of it a something to disperse the chemical. So what they don't have here, and I don't know if you can see it real well, there's no cap, there's no lock. So someone can just come in, you know, crank it open, whatever chemical's in there, oil or whatever, you know, it go on the floor. The containing unit looks okay, but they always say if you're not using it or they can't see somebody in the vicinity of where they're supposed to be using this chemical, then anybody could get to it. So let's say it's some sort of a child that gets to this, you know, someone's got their kid for work day.
I gotta fix that.
Then
I
that's a
got 30
violation.
gallon drums of liquid fertilizer,
Okay.
and I gotta fix that, because I don't pay attention, you know what I mean?
Sure,
We're on,
of course.
I'm on 50 acres, so there's no one out there, so you don't think about it, but I guess someone could drive out and
Yep.
Yeah.
I just didn't get everything else locked up,
Yeah.
put my 30 gallon drum,
Yeah.
I'm away. Oh, geez,
So
yeah.
that would be a violation. And if it's out in the open where the public can actually see it, and let's say there's an inspector on the way somewhere else, he's driving by, he looks over here, he can see that, that's a violation, and he actually has to stop. It's like a doctor's Hippocratic oath where if they see someone needs help, they gotta do something about it and help them. That's the same way with OSHA. It's not an oath per se in the same vein, but they're bound by duty to actually stop and address a violation.
I guess if you pull the pump and cap it, though, you'd be okay too, though, correct?
Yep.
'Cause
Even if it's-
sheet pumps,
Oh, okay.
that hand plastic one.
Yeah, now even if it's here and it's open, you still want to cap it, especially if it's in some sort of environment that something could climb in it.
Right,
You know?
right.
But let's say the handle here, you actually have, there's covers that you put on there and you can lock it. So now it's inoperable. You've got an administrative control over it. So now it's a different issue. So it's one step. Let's say you don't want to have to keep pulling it out, putting it down, because now whatever's on the bottom of that pipe that if the chemicals are in could either have exposure to the atmosphere or to the ground wherever you're setting it down. So it's okay to leave it in there, but you got to protect it in some way. You could even get some sort of bolt that goes over the whole thing, that on it, so and then put it over and close it on. And that's how you protect yourself in that area. This is telling you basically about having some sort of signage and some sort of exit plan, some sort of ways to make sure that you keep the area secure. Fire control plans, there's area business, especially if you have an office, you should have some sort of fire control plan. saying, okay, anything happens here, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is who's going to be called, and that's your fire control plan. This right here, liquid oxygen, that anything goes in there, ruptures that tank. Let's say a hurricane force wind or something, picks something up, ruptures that tank, that's an explosive right there. So you gotta be really careful with that. They have the barricades around this, so no one can back into it. There's some facilities that may have don't like that. Yeah, and back into that, you got yourself a nice accident. Let's say your drums are in something like this, you just put the lid down, close it up. You're protected. And then you have the warning signs and the caution signs. Housekeeping. They got some stuff over there, and they got some protection on the facility. The hose there's out. Some drum with the pump still on. But look at all this mess all the way around there. There's no kind of ways to walk through to get to anything. You got a hazard upon hazard, so you created another hazard to protect the hazard. So that whole area was housekeeping, and there's a general housekeeping rule that OSHA can look at, and they'll nail you on that every time. So same thing. This is telling you it's flammable. It's got kerosene. You can't really see it on the screen there, but it's telling you it's caution flammable kerosene. But on the very bottom, this is a spigot there that's uncapped, and it's someone can open that up. And it doesn't look like there's it looks kind of wet over here. You can tell on my screen there's discolor. So those are some of the things to look for. Fuel. You guys on the bigger projects, you probably want to have bigger fuel on site as opposed to giving out gas cards, especially if it's small gasoline tanks that guys could fill up their gas cans real easy. There's a standard for gas cans as well too. You can't just use the plastic ones from off of Walmart anymore. They actually have to be spring loaded and have to have a cap. So there's a standard for that.
Yeah, you can't buy a gas can with that.
Yep.
I hate that handle too. God, I hate it.
I haven't seen them, I still got the old.
Well, you gotta change it. So,
you get those anywhere?
Oh yeah, you can't buy a regular gas can with the regular old nozzle. It has this little handle, you like flip the lever and then you push it down, so like a lock handle and it opens and you let your
gas can.
Yep.
Okay.
That helps you with the spill. So again, this one is a picture of the general housekeeping. Yeah, it's just, they do have some room to get by, but look at all the hoses just hanging out. The pallets just flowing over the chair on the side. So we'll get you on that. This is some of the storage and handling. That's this whole section inside the building. That's another thing with the hazards. You notice the cabinets rusted out in some areas, so that's not a good cabinet. You're going to have to get rid of that and get a new one. Alright, those are handling flash points. Something wrong with this picture, isn't it?
The painter, that's the first one.
That's it. Yeah, so you got all that stuff on top of the container, and then you can look at all the liquid pouring off the sides with no kind of containment. It's all right on the bare ground. So someone inspecting this building right away, you're going to look and say, all right, we've had some sort of spill in the past. This isn't a double wall container, so that's an issue. Open container, nothing's labeled here. You don't know what's in these. It could be just waste you could just throw in it, or it could be something biological. Yeah,
that doesn't help your cause at all.
Yeah. So here you can even have, it could be an airborne issue because you don't know what's in the drums. Fumes also count as an airborne problem. It could be the ground, because now the soil is contaminated, and if it penetrates deep enough, it will have some contamination of groundwater. So got an air violation, you got a ground soil violation, and then you can have a water violation, all on the same site.
That'll put you out of there.
It's so much. So taking loading areas for some of the bigger trucks, bigger operations, if they have loading areas, gotta know what to do with that. So let's get through that here. The pump hose is all connected with no kind of isolation. This end is basically the discharge end. We'll just turn to A, and we'll crank it up, just discharge right now. Getting the explosion. There's your wall between the combustible materials, the boxes. There's your fire extinguisher. So that's a good storage for that person. Anhydrous ammonia, which is really, any of those are refrigerated plants dealing with anhydrous ammonia. It's highly hazardous. On this side tells you about your process safety handling. So whenever you have any highly hazardous chemicals, everybody's got to be on board on how to fix this, how to handle this, how to storage, and then how to clean it up. So that's what this whole section 1910-119 is. And this is actually the section just before the hazardous communication, the chemical spill side. This is talking about the process safety employee part, and we went over this earlier, so that's why I'm skipping through it. The PEL, that's the toxicity information, and we'll go through that when we go through the safety data sheets, but that's also in that plan. Process hazard analysis, we went through that, and the what-ifs checklist, that's really good to do. The what-if scenario is basically you saying, okay, this is the job we're going to do. What if this happens? What are we going to do to counteract this? What if this happens? What's our alternative here? So you're visualizing everything before it even happens. You could do that on the way while you're driving down to whatever location it is. The guys could go through a nice what-if scenario. And when you get there, things could change because now you're expecting that the right-of-way is now nice and open. You can walk right in. They got the fence open. Whatever is nice and in its right place. It could be nice. It could be a nice job. Everything's right where it is. But now all of a sudden, when you get there, the person's going through construction at their house, or something was wrong in that area. You have new hazards to think of. So that's the what-if scenarios, and they call that a tailgate meeting right there at the site. You could do a nice tailgate safety meeting saying, okay, now we see what our situation is. How are we going to do our work? What if this happens? How are we going to counteract that? So you visualize it. Could be 15 minutes. You don't have to sit down there for an hour or so trying to figure this out. And now you're wasting time and you're losing productivity. But guys, nice, good 10-minute overview. Even less, to say, what if this happens? What are we going to do? Who are we going to call? What effect we can have? It might even be nice to have every truck have one of those charts with the little yes, no trees, decision trees, so they know how to make those decisions right away. So that's a JHA, a job hazard analysis, or a hazard analysis. So it's a JHA. PHA is a process hazard analysis, so that's on the same vein. All right, go through that one real quick. Environmental issues. Okay, this one we could, I actually had that one going to a web link, but since we don't have any access, I have put this one in your book. Good thing I thought ahead. All right, here's your We're now in section 3, and that section 3 is environmental issues and pesticides, and then the numeric nutrient criteria, which we'll go over later. That's a whole new system, and that's water quality control. So looking at this book here, in the handouts, will show you what statute it is for your spill reporting requirements. So if you have a spill that is a Clean Water Act spill, the incident is either a shutdown, a startup, malfunction of a process, and it's not consistent with any procedure in a source plan, you have to call the EPA, and the owner is calling it, and it's the region 7 here. Our region is 5, but you're calling their region, and I've got the numbers in here, within 2 working days, and you have to follow up within 7. So if you're working this down, I'm looking at the incident section here. So I'm looking down the incident section, something that will be really related to you. Oil discharge, let's say something happened in one of your trucks, and you have oil on there. Maybe it's the 2-cycle oil for your weed whacker, or some sort of oil for another process, and it's a good enough discharge into water that you see sheen or discoloration, then that's a violation of the Clean Water Act, and the notifications go to the NRC, National Response Center, EPA Regional, and you have to notify them immediately. And the follow-up may not be required, or it may, just depends on what they think your cleanup activities was. They may think you did a good job, so you don't really need to follow up on that site. On the back of that, when you get to the hazardous stuff, like the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Comprehensive and Liability Act, that's the CERCLA, I guess that's how you say it. That is your hazardous requirements. 15 minutes when that hazardous substance gets released, you have to be on the phone within 15 minutes to make sure that that you cover yourself. Because let's say you don't report anything, right away that's a $2,500 fine, and it could go up a little higher. In some cases it's $5,000 if you don't do your reporting requirements right away. The record ones, that's the second from the bottom on the second page. So that's a release, anything that could be a chemical release, anything that could cause a fire or a facility explosion that threatens health outside of the facility. You got within 24 hours that they have to know, and that's the requirement there, but there's also follow-ups. So you could have follow-ups within 5 days as opposed to 5 to 30 days of the report. You're going to have to make sure that that facility has taken care of it in the right way. So they're going to see your follow-up action. So you're going to have to email them or fax them. And they do like email. So you don't actually have to call each time, because sometimes you can't get someone on the first or second call. So I emailed them and said, okay, I'm touching base with you. This happened last week. Here's my email on the follow-up, and I send pictures. This is what we did. Here's the place we rocked, and just so that they know that you're on top of it. So I've made more calls on the federal side and kept in touch with the federal agencies one-on-one. You get the case manager, and make sure you always write down the incident number, because if that guy's out and you have to go through someone else, they track everything by incident number. So as long as you have your incident number, they'll be able to pick up where your conversation was on the last guy. So you don't have to start over from scratch. So that was a lesson learned for me too. So I'm giving you guys my lesson learned as well. So the incident number is very, very important on that. National, this right here, after your reporting requirement, this is the local level. There's a full report from EPA about how the local people are doing. And that's what this report is. This is just saying, all right, we're going to interview each local emergency response person and see how they're doing. And this is only the first few pages of the document. It's about a 80-something page document. So I gave you guys just the first section, which gives you the survey design, the data collection, how they analyze the data, and then the overview and the key findings. So you guys just have the bottom line. I bottom lined it for you in this, so you can watch it, read it at your leisure. But the local emergency planning committees, they're the ones that are really going to get your reports more than anything. And here's a website of all the local emergency planning committees in the country. And Florida, you're just looking at the first page. And then we've got our own region, Treasure Coast region, which is tcrpc.org, TCR, Treasure Coast region, pc.org. So this is showing you your regions for EPA, and the next one here. Region 7 is my the handout here with the emergency response. This is taken from Region 7, but our Region 4 is the exact same one. I just couldn't find, they don't have theirs online. So I printed out Region 7. So Region 4, that's where we are for EPA. That's the South region, takes care of Kentucky all the way down to Florida, North Carolina over to Mississippi. And that's all that region has basically one regional office that you're calling. Next one, it's kind of light. And this is a handout directly from EPA, and it's telling you about what are extremely hazardous materials and how to protect yourself. So this is kind of like they call them a quick card, and this is kind of a quick card of the 8-hour class we're doing right now. So that's something that you could just use to see what's going on. And in there's also a map, but the map's so small, I blew it up for you. So on the next page, this is the map of Florida. So county by county, or not even county by county, Florida has its own set of regions. So our region right here for the Local Emergency Planning Committee, the LEPC, we're looking at number 10, and that's the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Committee. So if you guys have any issues and you're in this region 10, it covers Indian River down to Palm Beach County. That's the number you need to call.
I don't have that page.
Oh, you don't have this? It's I'm stealing Office Max. Here, I got some extras.
Oh, that's a.
Yeah, I got plenty of extras. Make sure we have it here. So keep this one with it, because I know you have some notes in
Yeah,
there.
I checked the whole page of notes. Thank you.
Where do you stop?
Right in
That, so you don't have this.
I get the health letter.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if you may have it out of order. I think that's not what I did.
Okay.
There it is.
Ah. Okay.
Big double dip.
That's my own fault. I can't sue.
Thank you, thank you.
I put it out of order.
Because reasonable credit, planning council, okay, good.
Yeah. And then I broke it down even further for you guys.
Yeah.
And the next 2 pages, front and back, I highlighted specifically Martin County, Palm Beach County, and St. Lucie County. So keep this with you, and if anything happens, you know who to call. It even has the contact name on it.
Okay.
So Martin County, you're going to contact Merle Stokes. It's got his phone number. I'm assuming it's him. And got the email address for him too. I don't know why W. Stokes. I'll bet you it's William Merle. He must be going by his middle name. Who goes by their middle name? Come on, use your first name. I've known Bill here for about 9 years.
I never knew I was Paul.
I never knew he was Paul. His first name was Paul. I found that out.
When I sent him a check for this.
He sent me a check. And then they said, Paul Miller. I'm like, what? 9 years. I know this guy. I never knew he was Paul.
I never used Paul, never.
All right, and the next page is the CERT. That's the State Emergency Response Team. And this CERT is made up by police officers, fire captains, those are the people that make up the CERT. And there's the Florida Response Team. I'm not sure where it would be on yours, Bill, but and so this is their numbers. The Florida State Warrant Point, those are the people you call first. And that's on your page. Oh, they actually say call first 911. And they'll say state your emergency, and you call them. Your emergency is a chemical spill. And you just call them, and they'll start you off. And then the next one, you're calling the Florida State Warrant. And then you're leaving a message for the most part, as opposed to getting a live person. And you'll hear a beep every couple of minutes. You'll hear a beep. I think it's like every 30 seconds while you're making a call. And you hear a beep. And then you're talking and you hear a beep. And they're recording you. That's what they're doing. It's being recorded at that time. So it's not only recording their message so that they can call you back, but it's recording a message so they can have an official timeline of when you did everything. And then you have the Chemtech people, Chemtrek. That's an emergency that you need. And then on the outer side, this has a link over here to what you should do. So what I suggest is when you get home and you get on your computer, do a search for the CERT, the State Enforcement Response Team, and bookmark this page on your computer. Especially if you have a laptop that you take with you in the field. So now you have all the hyperlinks, so you could actually click to the hyperlinks, and they have PDFs that you can print, and then you can have it for your company. So keep all those PDFs. It's a bunch of good free information of how to control spills and protocols, first responders, the ICS, which is your incident command site, and that actual site itself, the ICS, that tells you how to control that site. The incident commander, the IC, that tells you what you need to do. And the hazardous material websites on the bottom, it has the Florida one, then they have the federal one, and then they have some other sites. I use the Right to Know one quite a bit, and then the E-Plan, Emergency Response Information System, I've used that too. So that's a little trek through this book, so you guys could have some of that. So let's break for lunch, and then we come back at 1. And then we'll go through the other side of this page, the American Nutrient Criteria.